Hello viewers, welcome to Njogu Associates Advocates. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome. So my name is Njogu. I am the managing partner of the law firm. And I'm also here with my colleague, Janet, who I'm going to allow to introduce herself so that we can kick off today's discussion, which is basically about business registration. Welcome, Janet.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Janet Kanyi. I'm an associate at Njogu Associates Advocates. Welcome to our broadcast.
Thank you so much, Janet. So for today's conversation, we're going to be dealing with registration of a business. A lot of times we find that SMEs want to get into, want to expand their businesses, want to get capital from the banks. But once they approach the banks or they approach these financial institutions, we find a lot of times that they are not in any business structure. So we're trying to decipher today what is this legal outfit that they need to be in so that they'll be able to take advantage of all these facilities that are being offered by financial institutions. So, Janet, we're going to kick off our discussion today. So I'm an SME or I'm Muthoni and I want to start off my business. The bank has told me that I cannot be, granted the facility because one, I'm just an individual who has gone to borrow money on behalf of this business that I want to do, but I'm not in any structure. So tell us a little bit about more, how can we get, some legal identity that says that Muthoni and the business are two separate people altogether?
Thank you. When we think about companies under the Kenyan law, let us go under the umbrella of the word companies. When I think about companies, two things come into mind. First of all, they are statutory companies and they are registered companies. Yes. So what are statutory companies? Statutory companies are companies incorporated with the initiative of the Treasury. So the government. Yes. So the initial capital comes from the Treasury, and this is something like KPLC or Kengen. And as you can see, you being an individual, Muthoni, you cannot incorporate such a company.
You mean I cannot incorporate Kengen as my own person?
Not really. Not really. So the next type of company, these are registered companies. And I think this is where most Kenyan companies fall. These are companies incorporated under the Companies Act.
Companies Act of
2015. It's quite a new act that sort of brought together all laws relating to companies and doing business in Kenya. So registered companies. Yes, meaning that there has to be some form of registration. And registered companies can be classified into, how many companies do you think can come out of registered companies?
I would think that there are two sort of companies that come out of registered companies. So we'll definitely have unlimited companies and we'll also have limited companies. So I think when you're looking at the perspective of limited companies, you mean that they are limited in terms of the liability to whoever is a shareholder or director in that company. And then when we talk about unlimited companies, it's not limited. So if the company does go broke, then they will come after you. Or isn't it, Janet?
So from what I'm understanding, it is unlimited companies, there's no separate liability. I am the company is me. My losses and the company's losses are one thing.
It's like what we'd call a marriage of liability. You and the company are definitely liable for the liabilities of the company, yes.
Do you think I would be at an advantage or at a disadvantage if I was to choose an unlimited company? Maybe if you enlightened us about the other mode of companies?
So we would go back and say, now that we have realized that unlimited companies, the liability of the company also falls back on you as an individual. I think that's not one of the advantages that you'd want to go so, because you want the business to have an identification by itself. When we say identification, we're saying it's a completely separate legal person. It can sue, it can be sued, it can enter into contracts by itself without necessarily having to touch on Modoni. But I'd want to say that there's a sort of dissection again with limited companies.
So when we talk about limited companies, we are saying there is a separate personality between the directors and the company. But then again, that header of limited companies is then again divided into two. There are companies limited by guarantee and there are companies limited by shares. A company limited by guarantee means that directors guarantee a certain amount. That if in the instance this company goes under and it has to be wound up, the directors are going to each come up with that amount to pay off the debts that this company might have incurred.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I would take it, when you say a company limited by guarantee, I think there's no share capital at that particular point. And then I would give it akin to what we would call with SACCOs. In a lot of times when you want to take out a loan in a SACCO, this is normally what happens. You have saved 300,000, you are allowed to, withdraw 3 times if you wanted to take a loan. So your savings are 300, you want a loan of 900,000. So 2 persons, if you have 300,000, will need to come and guarantee, or 3 or 4 persons come and guarantee you. So they will be liable. So even for me, even as a director or a shareholder of this company, then I'll be liable to a particular extent.
The extent of liability will be to the amount that you guaranteed at inception. It is important to mention that companies' limited guarantees apply mainly to non-charitable organizations and NGOs. Yes.
So not so profit.
Yeah, not so profit. You will find most of those companies incorporated there. There's another header, companies limited by shares. I think that is where the majority of Kenyan companies fall.
Yes,
and that is where maybe our viewer would be much interested in.
Yes.
So can we enlighten them?
I think there was a lot of hullabaloo some time back that, young companies are being given government tenders. So a lot of times when you want to incorporate a company, it's a private limited company. So a private limited company backed by shares, we're just saying is you, the liability of the organization and yourself is limited to that unpaid share value that you have in the company. And just to, break it down a bit, there's a lot of misconception that the fact that the company is a separate legal entity by itself and has nothing to do with the individual, that we cannot access the individual. I think the government some time back talked about the beneficial ownership regulations, which I think we still have a deadline until June. So we are basically saying that legal protection that you have, such that the company can either sue, be sued, get into contracts, not get into contracts, and still not be able to touch you at that point, that legal separation can be lifted. And it's what we call in law the lifting of the corporate veil, so that I can get to Janet personally, who is a director in that company. And that's where the reason why as well, the government decided to come up with something called the beneficial ownership. We'll find that Janet is actually holding shares either on behalf of another third person. So we want to get to know the identity of also this other person. And this is a question to bring about, transparency. We want to know if a company is engaging in fraudulent activities, like we have seen with a lot of government procurement. We want to identify who are these people behind this particular company.
Maybe I, as a small business person who is just starting out with I've gone to YouTube, I've learned a few things here and there. I want to set up my baking business, just be selling from my home. Yes. But then I want to have the advantages of maybe knowing I can get financed by the government, or I want to have an identity. I want to legalize my identity as this home baker 101. So how do I go about it? What is the best outfit in this sort of limited, companies limited by shares, which is the best outfit for me?
There are a couple of headers as well under company limited by shares. Even as we get to the company, there are also other legal entities that you can actually be able to be in. So we'll have a sole proprietorship. I think it's what we normally call in Kenya a business name. So a business name would mean Janet Home Baked Cakes and Janet are one and the same thing. It's only that Janet has taken an identity of a business name. So if we are talking about taxation purposes, it will actually be the personal PIN of Janet. So we have the sole proprietor. But I think we also have a mutation of that if I was to get into a partnership. I think on partnership.
So you're saying I can actually convert my sole proprietor business to a partnership at some point?
If you desired to have a partnership. So let's just understand what exactly are partnerships. And partnerships are in three facets. So we have like a normal partnership. Me and you come and engage into a business. We are guided by a partnerships agreement. And then we also have
the limited partnerships.
We have
limited partnerships. This is where we have two partners in a business, but their statuses are not the same. So one, we have a general partner. This general partner goes through the day-to-day operations of this business. He's the one who knows when the business opens, the one who knows about procurement. The company is him or her. He is an all-round partner. And so his liability then cannot be limited because him and the company are one thing. And then there's this other partner who is going to come in now, who just wants to inject his capital and go his way. Yes. And then at the end of a financial year, he gets his profits. So his liability is limited to the extent of the capital that he injected.
So I think what you're saying, Janet, if a venture capitalist or an angel investor, I can actually just come and invest money within your partnership, but my work is silent.
Your work is silent.
Just to give out the capital.
Yes.
And then I don't do much, but I get profits.
You get profits at the end of the financial year.
At the end of the financial year.
Yes.
Okay.
There's also a third facet called limited liability partnerships. And limited liability partnerships, we would understand because this applies mostly to professionals, law firms, accountants, and any other professional who would want to set up a partnership. These are what are being called LLPs nowadays. They have a nice ring to it, like Njogu Associates LLP. They have a nice ring to it.
Definitely.
So what are these LLPs? LLP means that we come together, me, you, and another person. We inject our capital into this business. But then our actions do not affect the financial status of another person, so of the other partner. So if I go out there and make my own loss cannot affect your financial status. My liability is mine. The liability I incur is mine. We are all separate legal persons within the partnership.
If Janet, a client comes to me and they want to buy what we call, in Kenya, we have a lot of tendencies to want to buy property, And so I am going to go and get my own client on the side and undertake a conveyancing process. If something goes wrong in that conveyancing process, and it's Muthoni as the lawyer here, it will have nothing to do with you, who is my partner within the LLP.
Exactly. That liability that you incur is yours. It is yours to clear. It is yours to face. It's yours to shoulder. Yes, that is limited liability partnership.
So I think, viewers, you can tell from the discussion, it's either you opt out for any one of these legal outfits. Just to do a small recap, so we say they are, public companies, private companies. We also have partnerships.
Just to mention about public companies, do you think, is there something we are forgetting?
I think so. I think when I buy shares in Safaricom, what happens to Safaricom Limited? Is that a private limited company?
Safaricom is referred to Safaricom PLC, so there has to be something to the PLC.
Yes.
A public limited company.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Understood.
So public limited companies are companies which the general citizen can purchase shares from.
Did you get a loan to buy shares in Safaricom?
Who didn't? Who didn't? And so these shares also are traded over the counter at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. And also it is good to mention that Family Bank is one of those companies actually.
Oh.
Yeah, so that is simply to say PLCs, public limited companies, you can actually buy shares from the company, and the shares are traded at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Yeah.
Just to go back to the recap, we've said it depends on your objectives. It also depends on your goals. It's very important that you be very clear from the onset what those are. What are your objectives and what are your goals? Maybe from the point of starting out, maybe a sole proprietor is better for you. But then again, you know that when you move down the road and the business becomes big, you'd want to see, would I have saved the conversion costs that came in attendant to that? Or if I was a private limited company and we now need to add directors, would I have saved my costs at that point if I had made that decision from the onset? So you can either decide from your objectives and from your goals. Do I want to be a sole proprietor? Do I want to incorporate myself as a company? Do I want to incorporate myself as a partnership? Isn't it, Janet?
Now, having discussed all these outfits that one can actually fit themselves into, it is very important to remind our viewers that when you are trying to do these things, it is very important to seek legal representation so that your legal representative can actually explain to you and clarify on issues of compliance, tax, licenses. So yes, find out where you fit and then look for a legal representative to advise you on these things.
So, Janet, would our viewers just proceed by themselves to do these things, or your advice is, yes, you can do it?
Yes, you can do it.
But bottom line, it is critical that you get a professional eye.
Yes.
To give you some direction.
To give you some direction.
In the right direction.
Yes. Because when you incorporate a company, the effects are long term.
Yes.
You're now responsible of an entity.
Yes.
So it is good to know in the long shot, what are you putting yourself into? So legal representation is important.
It's important. I do agree with you. I think a lot of times, we want to go through the shortcut ways, or we think that lawyers cannot be accessed. But I think all lawyers are accessible, and it's important that you get, legal representation. Yes. And as with any business, it's a transaction.
It
is a transaction. So I think, viewers, we have dissected what exactly entails a legal entity, and which format you decide to go is based upon your objectives, based upon your goals, based upon what exactly do you want the outcome to be. So it's very important to, put yourself in that entity so that at least you're also able to get, advantages that have been forwarded to organizations that are recognized as such. That is all for this particular video. We shall be undertaking more videos that help you, deconstruct the law and demystify it so that you can be able to understand some of these legal basics that are necessary for you to push your business forward. Kindly do subscribe to our channel, like, share, or leave a comment. Let us know which other topics that you'd want us to dissect, and we'll be willing to do that. See you next time. Thank you. Janet?
Bye-bye.
Bye.